Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Baat Kardi. So, today's episode is going to be about a topic that I have personally struggled with. It's a topic that I know many people in the creative industry particularly struggle with, and honestly, really, people of all walks of life struggle with it, and that is motivation. Motivation is something that is very fleeting. It comes and goes as it pleases. And really, it's just one of those things that as humans, we have very little control over. It feels like an insurmountable sort of mountain that at times is so easy to scale, it feels like it's barely a challenge. And then at times, it can feel like Mount Everest, this Goliath that is insane when compared to your own David. But that being said, let's talk about that. So, when I think about my own struggles with motivation, I have to think about the fact that there have been numerous instances where I have just struggled to get things that I normally wouldn't struggle with at all done. I would struggle with working on my short films that I produce. I would struggle with this podcast. I would struggle with Project Manchala. I would struggle with my photography. There have been instances where I've completed a shoot and it's just going to be sitting there. It's going to sit idle and I'm just not going to be able to work on it for one reason or the other. And even now, as I'm recording this, there is a entire collection that I've made for my store account. If you haven't checked that out, by the way, mamphotography.store on Instagram. There's a brand new collection that I have shot and ready to work on for like months now, and I just haven't worked on it. I think the most I might have done is I might have just gone through the pictures and selected ones that I may want to keep and I may choose not to. But beyond that, nothing, and I don't really have an excuse. It's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, I'll get to it when I get to it. But there's no telling when that may be. There's no discernible time frame I have for when I'm going to get to it because I just don't know, you know? And for me, right now in this moment, I have to keep reminding myself that motivation comes in waves. It's never a continuous stream. You have to sort of understand that there will be moments when you're just waiting for the next wave, but you can't just sit idle. You need to put yourself in a position where you can capitalize on that wave and have it carry you as far as possible. Because that's the idea when it comes to motivation, at least to me, right? I have this thing where if I get a burst of motivation, I need to act on it immediately. There is no waiting or cultivating that motivation. I just need to immediately act on it. Otherwise, once it's gone, it's gone. That's it. So, what I try to do is I try to give myself a starting point for whatever it is that I need to be working on so that whenever that burst of motivation hits, I can just immediately capitalize. So, for example, what I do with my short films is that often I'll shoot extra bits of B-roll. So for those of you who don't know what B-roll is basically additional footage that you shoot to sort of either help with your main footage or it's just extra footage that adds fluff to whatever your main thing is. So for example, I'm talking to the camera right now. This is A-roll. So this is like the main thing. It's the main attention of the video. Now, for example, if I wanted to cut away and I wanted to give an example of footage, I might show you b-roll of like my space. I might show you b-roll of my my laptop, my desk space, what have you. And that basically supplements and adds to the A roll, so like your main footage. Anyways, so in certain situations, I might just shoot extra B roll. I might try to just have certain narrations already written down. I might even sometimes record the narrations that I use from my short films in advance. And then whenever motivation strikes, I'll use that energy to just work on that project. And sometimes I even finish the entire editing session in one full go. So like I'll sit down and I'll work on it for a couple of hours and I'll just have the entire short film edited and ready. And sometimes I even go from like scratch on a project to completion in one sitting because I really want to just capitalize on that surge of energy that I have. And yes, part of that has to do with the fact that I have sort of structured most of my art in a way that it does not require too much for it to be in a finished state. But sometimes I really want to take the time and really let a project breathe so I can give it the attention and the care that the craft really deserves. Now, that's not to say that I don't love my work in the capacity that it often is, which is a lot more simplistic, a lot more emotionally heavy rather than necessarily detail heavy. Because to me, art will always be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And sometimes you're going to lean a little bit more to this, and then sometimes you're going to lean a little more to that. And there will always be like shifts in my art. And that's part of why I love art so much, because you can flip flop between these things, and no matter what you do, it's still a unique thing on its own. And yeah, like let me give you an example, right? For the last episode from last week, I made a little promo video that I put up on Instagram and I put up on YouTube, which is what I do every single week. So if you're not following my Instagram, I am on Instagram specifically for like my short films that go up on Instagram, and even like promos about the podcast and just random little stuff that I decide to put out. I'm on Instagram at The Romantic Hopelessly, so be sure to follow me there. So I made a little promo for the last week's episode and I just put it up. And I wasn't really expecting anything out of just like the normal response that I get. But for some reason, that post went like mini viral in the sense that it got more views than I would normally get. It got double the views that I would normally get on a post of that capacity. And it got some more reactions as well. And I got like over, I think like 15 followers from that one video. And I was so confused. And I was like, wait, what is going on? Why is this one video attracting so much attention? And I think it was just the message, that I was talking about the fact that, yes, we all struggle. Yes, things are all difficult, but you're not alone. And I think that just resonated with so many people that it really gave me the motivation to make this episode as well, that we're all going to be struggling and going through certain slumps where things will come easy and certain times when things will just not come to us despite us wanting them to so badly, that sometimes you just need to take a breath and go like, can I do anything about this particular thing in this moment? If yes, you do it. If not, step away. Take a moment to just breathe, like really deeply breathe on it. And then if something comes to you, great. If not, we take a step back. We come back to it later. Because you can't force things all of the time. Sometimes brute force works. Sometimes it works great. I am guilty of brute forcing things all the time. But sometimes it just doesn't work, even for me. And you really need to take a breath and go like, okay, we'll come back to this. We'll figure it out. Let's head back for a bit. So yeah, you really need to learn when you should push it and when you shouldn't. And that, I guess, also dictates the kind of energy you put into things as well. I wasn't expecting anything fancy to come from that episode, or rather from the promo itself, but it became one of my most successful pieces. And I think that's also one of the really fun things about doing all of this, that you don't really know what's gonna click with people or what's not going to. You just do it and you figure it out as it comes. And that's, for me at least, it's one of the best parts about doing this. It makes me feel happy that there are things I'm putting out into the world and people are receptive to it. Like I've talked so much about how I want to use my space, my platform, to tell stories. And I want to share a story with you guys today for this episode. At the time of recording, it is the 23rd of January. Today is the death anniversary of my maternal grandfather. And it's been 7 years since he passed away. And each year is difficult in its own way, depending on where I am in my life at that point. And I'm honestly in a better place this year than I have been for a very long time. And it's not like I miss him any less, but I do feel that I need him in a different capacity than I have in previous years. This year, I'm just thinking about the fact that, all throughout my time in law school, one of the thoughts that was in my mind was that he told my mum that, when Abbas grows up, I'd like him to do bar at law. Or, I really see him having a great career as an advocate. And I sometimes worry that because I've taken a different route in life, would he still be happy? And would he still be proud of me? And there's so much in me that says yes, because he was never the sort of person that would push his ideals on anyone else. And, he would always want me to be just the best version of myself, whatever that it would entail, whether it be through law, whether it be through filmmaking, whether it be through, whatever. He would just want me to be happy and just do my best. Whenever I would go talk to him and tell him that, Nana, I'm struggling with something, I don't know what to do, and more often than not, our conversations would be about my studies. He would say, बेटा बस पढ़ डाल, ये वक्त अभी मिला है, इसको जाने ना देना, बस कर डाल. And for my viewers and listeners who don't speak Urdu or Hindi, he would basically say, son, don't let this time that you have go to waste. Just do it. Just get through this, give it your all, and make the most of what you have. And that has stuck with me throughout my life, even though it's not like something that I regularly try to tell myself. But I sort of adopted that for so many things in my life that I just kind of decide to do things sometimes, and I don't really try to think them through very much. Not in the sense that I don't think about the pros and cons and whatnot, but in the sense that I don't obsess over some parts, if that makes sense. Like when it comes to my short films, I don't want them to be too complicated. Sometimes it's just an emotional video. like a lot of people might not necessarily even consider them films. Honestly, sometimes I don't consider them films, but to me, anything that tells a story, anything that has an idea, anything that has a message, and that is cinematic, that's a film. That's a film, and you know, that's that's what it is. It's just simple from there. It's not more than it needs to be. And yes, I have worked on projects that were more detail oriented, that were more focused, and that they were more narrative driven, and really had like a cohesive, connected timeline. And I will, inshallah, God willing, work on more projects like that in the future. But with the capacity I have, with the level of energy and the motivation I have, I do what I am allowed, and I make the most of it. Because sometimes your motivation is right here. It's right here. Sometimes your motivation is right here. Sometimes it's right here. And then sometimes it's right here. So you do what you can with the motivation you have, and you make the most of these opportunities. Because unfortunately, time really waits for no one. Time really doesn't wait. And, you know, you can either just choose to make the most of what you have right now, or you can choose to be upset about things not working out later. But at least you'll have known you tried if you give it a shot right now. And what's the worst that'll happen? You don't create a masterpiece. You create something that's pretty average. Okay, who cares? At least you'll know that you've done something, right? And does that not matter more than anything else? I create my short films, my microfilms, my emotional videos, whatever you want to call it, right? I do that because I want to do it. I do it because I want to tell a story. Sometimes that story is not very clear. Sometimes that story is just for me. And sometimes that story is something that I feel like other people might benefit from. And sometimes I just do it because the alternative is not doing anything. And that's a disservice. That's a disservice to me. That's a disservice to you. That's a disservice to the world at large. If we were put on this earth to do something, and you feel like you found what that is, you found your supposed calling, and you choose not to do anything with it, then you, my friend, are doing a disservice. And that's not it. Why do we just sit and think about what could be rather than doing it? Yes, easier said than done. Life will always throw curveballs at you. Life will throw problems. Life will just have so many things that don't add up. But at the end of the day, like after the storm has passed, after everything has gone bad, we can either choose to sit in the bad, or we can get up and try to move towards something better. And that is what I want to leave you guys with, that there will always be more. You know, like what's at the edge of the storm? What is beyond? Like if you walk just a little bit more, you might see where the rainbow starts. And if you follow along, you might even get to the point where the rainbow ends and find out that there was so much more than what you were struggling with right now. Right? There have been so many instances in my life where I have just been completely swamped. I thought that this is the worst case scenario, right? This is the most difficult point in my life, and I do not understand where to go from here. I don't know how to get through from here because this feels like so much. But I sit in front of you today, 25 years old. I've lost both grandparents. I've lost one of my grandmothers. I've lost my grandmother's sister, who was basically another grandmother to me, my maternal grandmother's sister. Right, so that's, you can effectively say I've lost both grandparents. I've lost two sets of grandmothers. My maternal grandmother is alive, but she is getting older and she is going through her own problems with illness and injuries and so on and so forth. And I lost my childhood best friend. So I'm no stranger to death. I've gone through death so many times at this point, it feels more like a memory. So what I'm trying to say here is that you will face adversity, you will face so much. And after all of that, life goes on. You know, I lost so many people, and I thought that how am I supposed to get through this? But I did, because that's just how it works, and that's how we're supposed to work. You know, today is the 23rd of January. You're likely to see this episode on the 24th of January. On the 25th of January is my paternal grandfather's death anniversary. So it's basically like a death anniversary sandwich. And yeah. But for whatever it is, for all that has happened, life went on, and I told myself that we have to keep moving, we have to keep going. And I did, because I realized that I could either choose to do nothing and just let all of the feeling and all the emotion just envelop me and just keep me down, or I can use that emotion and everything I was feeling to just propel myself a little bit further. Just one step forward, just one more moment. And then we'd see where we end up. Sometimes you just do things without a certain goal in mind, and that's okay too. Motivation doesn't have to be this big sort of light bulb moment that just completely changes your entire worldview. It can just be something as simple as, okay, I have the energy to do this one task. I'm going to do this one task, and then we'll see how we feel after that. If we have the energy to do more, we're going to do more. If we don't have the energy to do more, that's fine. That's completely fine. And that's fine. Look, I don't know what anyone who is listening to this or watching this is going through. I don't know what your circumstances are. I don't know what you've survived. I don't know what you're bound to go through. All I know is that you can let the adversity win, or you can choose to fight back. Motivation has its own issues. Let's just say that. Motivation has its own issues, but what is life without some issues? You can do more than you think you can, and you have more ability within you than you realize. And take this from one of the biggest hypocrites on the internet. That whatever the voice inside your head says, just make sure to figure out who that voice actually is. Because if it's not your voice, odds are it might not necessarily be telling you what's right for you. So I'm going to leave you with just this one last thing. No matter what you do, no matter how much or how little effort you seemingly put into it, as long as you do it for the right reasons and you do it to the best of your ability within that given moment, a lack of motivation will not stop you. Give yourself a starting point. Give yourself something that you can actually just capitalize on as soon as the feeling comes. And trust me, you will find yourself never struggling from a lack of motivation. Sometimes it's just going to be that little bit that you can do, and that's okay. Sometimes it's going to be a lot, and you're going to be so accomplished at the end. Just remember to celebrate all of the wins, the big and the small, because sometimes that's all you can do, and that's 100% okay. I don't know who this message is going to reach. I don't know how many of you are even going to take something away from this. But if nothing, take that last bit to heart, because that's all I can really give you guys is just these random pep talks and just however many minutes of me just rambling to a camera. So I think with that, we're going to end this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Baat Kardi. Be sure to check out Baat Kardi wherever you get your podcast from. Baat Kardi actually goes live one day early for podcasting platforms and then launches the very next day on YouTube. So if you'd like to get a early release or a sneak peek even for what the episode entails, be sure to check us out on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, because that's the best way to keep up with us early before everyone else. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you all in the very next episode. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.